Hey, wukdar. Okay, I've been meaning to get to this. First of all, don't tell me how many videos to make. And I bring it up because, I don't know, or is this a kind of tactic that you're going to do? Because I want you to know I'm not at all self-conscious about the fact that I've made 3 video series before, especially since when I did that, it was a second time I'd responded. There were actually 4 responses because my first response was very close to the point. But Everett said that I hadn't understood or really responded to the points of his video. So I intended to respond to every point. And I put in the description that I consider that one of the most boring ways to make a video. And if you're going to jump on that, just realize that I'll actually make 3 videos whenever I want to. And it's not really like a weakness that you can jump on as some sort of a side thing that's going to have a strong effect on me. Now maybe just because this is a reply you were worried. I mean, because you do bring up several things besides your demand and challenge, right? And but don't worry, I think I can get to all of them in 10 minutes, and I think it's fair to say that, I will do that partially by ignoring some of the things you say, which are not really relevant. So, before I give you an answer on to how I model morality, I will say you are continually incorrect about science. It is not to find absolutes. Its goal is not to find an absolute. The goal of the scientific method is to find better systems. Not absolute truths, but better truths. And you can see this in history, right? Not all forms of Christian theism were the same. And in the Renaissance or Reformation and the Enlightenment, a lot of people held on to their theism and still were able to get better systems. Kierkegaard was a Christian, but his Christianity and his philosophy was a lot more coherent and better than a lot of other theists that precede him. So we don't have absolutes. You say, oh, but there are such things as fact. Yes, facts are not theory. You also acknowledge that they're not absolute because there's always an element of error. Every scientist will try to give you an estimate of how much error they know they probably introduced, just based on the ability and what they do know about their measuring devices. And they'll try to estimate how wrong that fact is. But that's not the main point. The main point is that facts are only true relative to a given frame of reference. Relative, as opposed to absolute, okay? There are relative truths because they come from relative facts. Now into an ethical system. The facts that you get through observation or anything else, as I said, are true in a given reference frame, okay? So within a single reference frame, you can argue a lot like you objectivists and absolutists say, okay? So if I'm traveling 100 miles an hour relative to the Earth in my frame of reference, in other frames of reference that will be different. It won't be 100 miles an hour. It could be 50 or 75. But it's still true that in my frame of reference it's 100. If I say that it's 75, I'm just factually wrong. Okay? Because our ability to measure that speed has enough accuracy to know, no, you're wrong. And yet I can't say that I'm absolutely correct that it's 100 miles per hour either, because there will be some sort of error in the measurement of that. All right? And as I just said, there will also be other frames of reference where the fact itself is different. In morality, what we're working from is common frames of reference. We deduce our morality, or what we ought to do, from other frames of from within a given frame of reference. So for example, the argument that it's wrong to kill baby humans is a very compelling argument. You could pretend it's objectively true, and hey, if you're against baby killing, that's probably good enough for me. But it's not objectively true. That comes from the human frame of reference. You can argue that to humans, we're all cousins, we're all family. You can argue that you shouldn't kill a family member. There's a lot of arguments that can be drawn from our common frame of reference. Being human, but dwelling on the earth, a lot of different arguments that can be drawn from common frames of reference, and therefore you can reach common statements that apply to everybody in this common group as to what they ought to do. But if an alien lands on Earth, you won't be able to say that it's wrong to kill babies. Maybe they eat meat like we do, and maybe they want to eat one of our babies. We will fight them, right? Because in the end, morality is not really about what other people ought to do. It can be that in the sense that what you have decided you will expect from them, but really, moral statements are statements about what I ought to do. Moral systems are for me to use so that I can try to do the right thing because I want to do the right thing. If you have somebody that says, well, I don't want to do the right thing, or I interpret the human experience differently, so your argument from the common frame of reference, doesn't convince me. As a relativist, that's okay. It's just time to fight, I guess. You know what I mean? We will decide whether we're going to let you steal from us because of your philosophical argument. And we won't. Okay? But meanwhile, that doesn't cause all the morality of all of us to think it's immoral to steal to fail, because all the arguments from the common frames of reference that we have accepted still hold true. Now, some people might say, oh, well, that's just, morality by consensus. Well, yeah, in a sense, yes, this is a system where morality is something to be negotiated and agreed upon. But it's not just voting on it, because it has to be rational. It does follow from the facts in your frame of reference. You have to demonstrate through your argument and your facts why a particular thing is moral or immoral. But there are competing definitions in anything as complex as the human frame of reference. Competing definitions. So some people want to work just from a first principle, and whatever the results are, fine. Property rights are absolute. If that means that the guy with the water won't share the water with the rest of the lifeboat, oh well. Some people have more goal-oriented criteria. And it's like, well, they might want to respect property rights, but if it means somebody is going to die of thirst when there's water that could keep them alive, then they call that immoral. And these conflicts, how are these conflicts resolved? These conflicts are resolved by the law of the jungle, by figuring out, where do we all stand? What can we agree? Which line of argument are we going to go to? Because we have to decide what we believe strongly enough to act on it. If I'm in a society of Nazis, and the Nazis all get together and they think, well, human eugenics is, morally the right way to go, I'm not going to rely on a common moral system with them in order to argue that they shouldn't be opening concentration camps. Right? I'm not going to, that argument will exhaust itself rather early. And will I give up? No. I'll fight them in the streets. I'll fight them some other way. And I think this all works out rather well, because I don't think the moral systems of Nazis appeal too well as they show their ramifications. I don't think they're too appealing to humans. If they were appealing to humans, well, all would be lost, wouldn't it? Morality wouldn't do us any good. But the fact is, we are creating moral systems because we want to be moral. Okay, this is what people forget. We want to do the right thing and feel like we're doing the right thing. Okay, so for people that don't really want to do the right thing but still want to feel like they're doing the right thing, or have society and other people view them as doing the right thing, they're a lost cause. I'm not basing my moral system on how those people think. They just want a hypocritical special advantage. But if you work with people that want to do the right thing, it turns out that yes, you can actually appeal to your common frames of reference, and you can appeal to the alien that wants to eat your baby and say, hey, I'm a sentient, intelligent being. As living beings, we share a common reference frame. Let's not eat each other's babies. And if all they want is to eat your baby, then no, that argument won't work. Even if they accept that it's morally wrong, it might not work. They might go ahead and do it because they have this other ulterior motive. And morality is for people that want to be moral. That's the first thing. Ethics is for people that want to be ethical, right? And how do you build them from common frames of reference? Did I make it in 10 minutes? Oh, I did. Postscript. So I'm curious, do you understand what I'm saying? That we don't have to go for an absolutely correct theory, that nobody has to do that, that it's good enough to try to get a better theory. You might say, well, that's not good enough. It should be absolutely true. If it's not absolutely true, then how can you say it's better than mine? Well, we can have a criteria of judgment. It can be better at predicting, for example, in science is something we often use. Do you understand that? Do you get that? How if my system is better than yours, that's good enough, really? And the fact that I know there's another system coming better than mine is better than good enough? That's how we get progress?